Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is honestly pretty wild. We're unpacking the really startling truth about why our bodies are quite literally starving for nutrition, even though we're producing more calories than at any other point in human history. We're going to look at the ground we stand on, the food on our plates, and the undeniable data that shows how our agricultural system has just fundamentally shifted. Okay, let's jump right into this. I want you to really think about this bold statement for a second. Your multivitamin is a receipt for a broken food system, right? I mean, if your daily food was actually doing its biological job, you wouldn't need to buy a pill to supplement it. Your grandmother didn't need a massive supplement aisle because her food actually was the supplement. Today, that daily pill you're popping is really just a costly symptom of a system that has completely broken its promise to nourish you. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but how broken is it really? Well, let's look at the numbers. 38%. A landmark 2004 study, which actually used the government's own USDA data, showed a staggering 38% median drop in riboflavin across 43 common garden crops between 1950 and 1999. And it wasn't just riboflavin. Iron dropped 15%, calcium dropped 16%, vitamin C dropped 20%. The basic raw ingredients of our diet have literally been quietly diluted over the decades. To put that into perspective, imagine two identical dinner plates sitting side by side. The portions look the exact same, the foods are the same, but your grandmother's plate of roasted chicken and steamed broccoli from the 1950s had vastly more iron, calcium, and protective minerals. That plate was biochemically acting as medicine for the body. Today's plate? Well, the tomato might look perfectly round and flawless, but it's basically a cosmetically perfect, biochemically hollow hybrid. You are, unfortunately, simply eating filler. So how did this massive dilution even happen? It's basically a perfect storm of three distinct forces stacking up. First up, genetic breeding. For 80 years, we've selected seeds purely for heavy yields and shelf life, which essentially bred the nutrition right out of them. Second, dead soil. We've managed to destroy the microbial life that actually delivers minerals to the plants. And third, rising atmospheric CO2. The largest studies ever assembled show that as carbon dioxide rises, plants grow faster and get fatter, making our food more caloric, sure, but measurably less nutritious. All of this data leads to one undeniable conclusion. We don't have a food shortage. We have a nutrient famine. We're basically a nation caught in a system that values heavy yields over human health. Sure, we produce enough caloric commodities to feed the world, but our bodies are wildly undernourished, desperately searching for the minerals and vitamins that simply aren't in the food anymore. Which brings us to the section on the safe chemical cocktail. Because, you see, we didn't just breed and dilute the nutrition out of our food, we replaced it with a synthetic chemical burden that we're told is perfectly safe. Get this. The USDA's 2023 Pesticide Data Program found something incredible and honestly a bit alarming. Over 72% of commercially sold produce carries detectable pesticide residues. And we aren't just talking about one single chemical per item here. We're talking about stacking chemical residues. Imagine a fungicide, an insecticide, and maybe two herbicides, all layered on the very same apple or bunch of grapes that your kid is eating for lunch. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, doesn't the EPA say this is safe? And yes, they do, because they test each chemical individually and declare it below tolerance. But here's the terrifying truth. Absolutely nobody is testing the safety of the daily chemical cocktail your child consumes year after year. There is literally no validated framework for combining these dissimilar chemicals in tests. They call it safety testing, but ultimately, it's really an institutional decision not to look. Let's move on to the subsidy sickness loop. The crucial thing to understand here is how this whole chemical and agricultural model actually stays in power. It's a system funded by the very people it makes sick. The crazy reality is, you actually pay for your food 3 times. First, you pay at the checkout counter. Second, you pay through your taxes, which fund the farm bill. Now, the farm bill subsidizes cheap commodity crops like corn and soy, which become the ultra-processed foods making up over half of the American diet. And third, when that highly engineered food inevitably makes people sick with chronic diseases, well, you pay again through taxpayer-funded healthcare like Medicare to treat it. The taxpayer funds the poison, eats the poison, and then pays for the treatment. And the consequences of this? Actually, scratch that. It's not just a healthcare issue. It bleeds straight into national security. The Pentagon's own 2022 accounting found that a staggering 77% of Americans aged 17 to 24 cannot qualify for military service. And the leading physical causes? Obesity and diet-related conditions. Our food system is literally producing a population that is physically incapable of defending the nation. Meanwhile, who's actually taking all the risks to grow this food? Back in 1950, the independent American farmer kept about 50 cents of every food dollar. Today, squeezed by massive corporate monopolies that control the seeds, the chemicals, and the processing, the farmer keeps just 14 cents. The person doing the absolute hardest work, taking on the debt and managing the land, receives the smallest share of the value. They're effectively reduced to corporate serfs in a vertically integrated supply chain. Okay, take a breath. Acts 1 and 2 of the story were pretty grim, I know. But here is the section on restoring living soil, and this is where everything changes. This is the hopeful, highly actionable inverse of this crisis, and it relies on something right beneath our feet. So currently, food labels like organic mostly just tell us what inputs were avoided, right? But to actually fix the system, we need to measure what is achieved. Enter the pristine standard. This is a totally open, outcome-based score measuring the actual nutrient yield of the food, its chemical cleanliness, and the biological life achieved in the soil. It completely shifts the focus from the sheer volume of the harvest to the actual value it delivers to our bodies. It's a real game changer. And this standard champions a massive shift. Think about it. A farm relying on chemical dependency has to import synthetic fertilizers. We're talking about buying 92% of our potash from foreign adversaries. That is a massive vulnerability. But a farm with living soil achieves biological sovereignty. It doesn't need to import those chemicals. Instead, it uses these vast, incredible bacterial and mycorrhizal fungal networks underground to mine nutrients directly from the earth, all powered for free by the energy of the sun. It really comes down to this simple truth. Chemistry can feed a plant, but only biology can nourish a person. And we already have the proof that this works. Studies show that when farmers quit the chemical inputs and rebuild the soil biology, the nutrition just floods back. In one documented case on an Oregon wheat field, just 2 years of feeding the soil biology instead of the plant raised the grain's zinc levels by 50%. No way, right? But it's true. The ground remembers exactly how to heal. So when you look at the whole picture, the diluted crops, the chemical cocktails, the insane taxpayer loops, and the dead dirt, we loop right back to that undeniable truth we established at the very beginning. We don't have a food shortage. We have a nutrient famine, which is exactly why. Your multivitamin is a receipt for a broken food system. It is merely a symptom. It's the physical proof sitting right there in your medicine cabinet that the agricultural system has fundamentally broken its biological promise to nourish you through your food. We know the cause. And the amazing news is we know the solution is already working on regenerative farms across the country today. So the only question left to answer is this. Will we continue funding our own physical collapse through a system that measures weight instead of worth? Or is it time to demand that our soil and our health come back to life? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep asking the hard questions about what's really on your plate.